I am an ex-Mormon and a stay-at-home mom. Seems like an oxymoron, and it wasn't always this way. When I first left the church, I didn't have kids yet. Me and my husband were married for about a year, and we decided to move to New York to kind of get away from Utah and try a radically new experience. And we moved to Brooklyn, but I knew I still wanted to have kids, and we ended up getting pregnant with our first. But because of my experience as a Mormon woman, I had such a strong conviction that I would not be a stay-at-home mom. I think this level of judgment came from all of my years in the church and all of this messaging I had received that women are only meant to be stay-at-home moms. They're only meant to bear children, and that is the beginning and end of their purpose on this planet. And so when I got pregnant and then had my first son, I decided to go back to work. And I worked in the years after that as a teacher. The teachers get up really early, earlier than little tiny babies. And so as a full-time teacher, I would not get to see my son till after work. My husband would take him into daycare, we would both work for the day, and then I would pick him up at the end of the day. So this meant, and this is how it is for many women, I didn't get to see my son till 4 or 5 p.m. each day. And at this time he was falling asleep at like 7. So Monday through Friday I would get about 2 hours a day with my son, sometimes less. But I had such a strong conviction that I needed to work. And I felt in myself this very strong urge to just be the opposite of Mormons. And I felt like if I became a stay-at-home mom, I was almost turning my back on this experience of leaving the church. I was turning my back on feminism. I was turning my back on all of these things I had learned as I left the church and deprogrammed myself. Even as I missed my son so desperately, I still kept going back to work and being a teacher. When my second son was born, I decided not to go back to work. Maybe this whole thing sounds silly, but to me, to some extent, I really feel like Mormonism tainted motherhood for me. Motherhood is not a Mormon experience. Motherhood is a human experience. My upbringing in the church robbed me of the joy that is motherhood because it made it connected to this toxic religion. And it made it connected to my worth and value as a human. And that my worth was connected with my ability to have kids and to watch them and stay home with them. So when I had my second, I had this really big realization that instead of living my life for Mormonism, I was living it for ex-Mormonism. And like literally a pendulum swinging back and forth, I was just trying to go in the opposite direction that I had as a Mormon. And that in my hurry to exit the church, I had just tried to become the opposite of all these things the church had taught me. But I think this is a really common aspect of leaving Mormonism, is that it feels really good to just do the opposite of whatever you were doing as a Mormon. And I allowed that urge, that rush to get away from Mormonism to dictate how I approached motherhood. And I allowed it to rob me of being the type of mom I wanted to be in the name of reclaiming my identity back from Mormonism. This is not to say that every woman should feel this way. This is not to say that every Mormon woman or ex-Mormon woman or never Mormon woman should feel X, Y, or Z, but rather to illustrate what I learned in my process of leaving the church. How much I just tried to do a literal 180 and run in the absolute opposite direction of everything I learned as a Mormon woman.